Hey, this is all my favorite things from the screen with a quick breakdown of Only Murders in the Building Season 2 sneak peek. I've went through this frame by frame and I was able to find a few clues to what will happen in Season 2. Warning for possible spoilers if I happen to get anything right, and for some behind the scenes photos. Some helpful information to what's going on can be found in the official synopsis. It goes as follows. Following the shocking death of the Arconian board president Bunny Folger, Charles, Oliver, and Mabel raced to unmask the killer. However, three unfortunate complications ensue. The trio is publicly implicated in Bunny's homicide. They are now the subject of a competing podcast, and they have to deal with a bunch of New York neighbors who all think that they committed the murder. Off the top, aside from the trio being publicly implicated in Bunny's homicide, it appears that syndicating has wasted no time in launching Only Murderers in the Building. This has to be the competing podcast that is referenced. In that case, I think Cinda will be key to unlocking some of the hidden history behind some of our characters, and it may not paint them in the best light. But at the end of the day, I'm hoping that her investigation ends up helping the trio clear their names, find the true culprit. The synopsis also mentions that they have to deal with their neighbors thinking they committed the murder. This is expected, as quite a few of them voted to have them kicked out of the Arconia. This makes me think of two things that we should look out for. Number one, who replaces Bunny as the Arconia's board president? If there is an organized crime ring, it would make sense for them to place someone they can control or as part of the organization as board president. And second, who exactly is spearheading the idea that they committed the murder? I think it's likely that the culprit will place themselves in the conversation just as Jan did and attempt to sway others into thinking that the podcasters are killers. With all that being said, now let's get into the trailer. After seeing our podcasters glance over the New York sky, our trio is outside of the Supreme Court of the state of New York, and it appears that they could have already gone to trial. This isn't them being released from jail, they are at a courthouse. I'm assuming all the information was circumstantial against them, and that the trio has been cleared of all charges. The synopsis doesn't state that they are being investigated, only that they are implicated. And this makes me think that the biggest issue that they are dealing with is the court of public opinion. You don't see all three of them in this shot. That's because Charles and Mabel are ahead of Oliver. This is confirmed from behind the scenes pictures taken. Oliver likely stayed back to give comments to the press, and then he joins his friends afterwards. The audio that he speaks could likely be from his comments. We then get some shots of Mabel, and it appears that this is her returning to her apartment after Bunny's murder for the first time. Not only because of her pulling off the police tape, but she's wearing the same outfit that she discovered Bunny's body in. This is also the same outfit she wears leaving the courthouse, sans the blood-stained tops that she carried out in a bag. We see her sitting on her couch looking at the beautiful mural she painted. I looked it over and it does appear to be the same one from episode 10 of season 1, but I notice her head is covering the picture of Dr. Grover Stanley's face. Now, this could be nothing or a filmmaking choice to obscure his face from our minds as a person of interest. I like to think that this picture shows all the main players of the show, and any of these could be a suspect, not including the dearly departed Bunny. We also get our first shot of Cara Delevingne's character, Alice, speaking to Mabel, and whatever's being said, she doesn't look happy. She's said to be an art world insider. We don't know what that could mean to the story. The only person we know to have any real affinity to art is Charles. His apartment shows that he's a bit of an art collector, but nothing so serious that he could retire off of. If there is a criminal organization in the building, they could also deal in the dark world of art. It's a very strange market, and it's often used to hide money in the form of assets. It's pretty much controlled by a very small group of people, and I'm interested to see how she ties into the story. We also have a shot of Teddy Demas, who has been released from jail. Last season, he was falsely arrested for the murder of Tim Kono, but somehow he and his son was able to get off on multiple other charges, including money laundering, the sales of illegal jewelry, and most importantly, the death of Zoe Cassidy. I'm guessing you don't mess with the Deli King, And I'm also guessing that whoever Teddy was working for, the person heading the crime ring in the Arconia, has some serious pull, to the point that Teddy is back at home, though he may be awaiting trial. We see him in his secret room, still filled with urns, and I don't know if his business, Shinedown Funeral Home, could keep its doors open as a legitimate business, but he is back for season 2, and though he's not in the trailer, so is his son Theo Demas. Theo is shown in behind-the-scenes set photos with Mabel in the SUV that he drove our podcasters home in after he kidnapped them. But Mabel sits up front, so it seems they have made amends, and Theo was able to explain what happened to Zoe, and they are at peace. Or maybe Theo feels indebted to Mabel and is helping her clear her name. Either way, it's great to see the Demases back for season 2. We also have our first shot of Amy Schumer, and though we know Kara will be playing a character named Alice and Michael Rappaport will be playing Detective Krebs, we have not been given a name or description of Amy's character. We don't have much to go on, but I will say I believe this is Sting's apartment after it's been refurnished. Sting opens his double doors to his apartment just as Amy does, and you can see the same architecture in the background. The design has been changed. Before, his apartment was very dark, and now it's very bright. I'm guessing the scene is a member of the podcast going around to different people living in the Arconia, trying to find out what they heard the night that Bunny was killed. This could easily be a part of their investigation. She could also be the decorator or even a relative to Sting. He is but one of a pretty famous family. Either way, I'll be waiting for a full trailer to get a better idea of how her character fits in. We also get a few shots of our trio at what appears to be the wake for Bunny Folger. I know this is Bunny's apartment as we saw the same entryway in episode 1 when Mabel and Charles broke into it in order to retrieve Tim Kono's package. Oliver states that we know what we must do, and maybe they're looking for something inside of her apartment and will attempt to steal it without being noticed. I think we should all be on the lookout for what's inside of her apartment. Who knows, there could be some stolen art or her murder weapon, and I'll explain that theory later. One of the most interesting shots is Mabel looking through a peephole and seeing something that shocks her. This doesn't appear to be a secret room like the one Theo watched the Hardy Boys ransack his father's place in, but an actual door. But what follows appears to be editing, but I don't think it's part of the same scene, and it's also the most frightening frame from our sneak peek. We see a hand in a rubber glove holding a very large knife, hinting at the possibility that someone else may be a victim of another murder. Something I noticed that if you look very closely as the knife goes down, you can see that the person in the background is wearing an Only Murders podcast tie-dye hoodie. This could very well be someone getting ready to go stabby stab on another victim. Now this is a stretch, but what if this is actually a flashback to Bunny's murder? She was actually stabbed with a knife, and then either Mabel's knitting needle was placed in the wound, or she stumbles in on Mabel, already bloody, but a frightened Mabel, thinking it's an intruder, stabs her as a reaction. I only say this because there seems to be much more blood than there would be from a large needle stabbing someone in the chest. I know it's a stretch, but maybe it's someone else entirely. I'd like to know how many Only Murder hoodies Oliver was able to sell. We have the voiceover of Oliver stating that they have been threatened not to speak, and I believe this is a reference to the poisoning of Winnie, his dog, one of the loose ends from season 1. They know that there is someone else out there, and they were threatened to end the podcast very early on. Jan did not write that note, and this is the same person who wrote a note to Jan telling her that she was being watched. But as they have now been implicated in a murder, the group has found a new agency. One where Mabel, who in season 1 said she would rather die than narrate the podcast, now speaks to the listeners and likely directly to whoever attempted to frame her, knowing they're listening, telling them, "We will not go quietly." Those are the highlights from the teaser and everything I was able to find. Was there anything that I missed? Let me know down in the comments. And if you could give the video a like, it would be helpful to get my video out to more people. Either way, thank you for watching, and I'll catch you guys on the rooftop.